China has imposed a partial lockdown on some new regions.
Hospitals are beginning to face dire conditions like those in New York back in March. ICUs are packed and beds are
set to trial a new vaccine against coronavirus over the coming week.
Pfizer and Moderna showing positive results, more than a dozen potential.
So hey guys, I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope each and every one of us know what COVID-19 is. But we still do not know how the doctors are fighting it each and every day inside the hospital since last 6 months. So I did a pretty detailed and long interview with 2 doctors who are currently working with COVID-19 patients, and one of them were also diagnosed with COVID-19. So I did a pretty detailed and long interview that how they are fighting it, what is remdesivir, what is herd immunity, and what other drugs they are using it to fight COVID-19. So I hope this video will be informational and will be useful for all of you, and I hope you guys share this interview with everyone who needs to see it. Thank you.
Okay, so hey guys, I have Dr. Parmar and Dr. Jani. They are 2 physicians who are working at hospitals with coronavirus patients. So these questions, they are their own views, not an organization or not a hospital views or anyone else's views, their own individual views. So how are you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for having us, Ish.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for making time. And I can see, Vishal bhai, you are still in the hospital thing? Like you're still in that uniform?
Yeah.
Thank you for making time. It really means a lot.
No problem.
So,
thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, guys, Karma bhai, Dr. Parmar, he was also a COVID-19 patient. So, yeah. So, like, tell me about like how was your situation? Like, how was it? Like, how did it all started? How did what were the symptoms and all?
Yeah, so I in glass half full type of perspective, I think I was very fortunate in terms of my symptomology. My symptoms began with just whole body aches, chills, and subjective fevers. It was the next day when I started feeling really weak. I checked my temperature, and at that time it was 100.8 degrees Fahrenheit. What I also started noticing too is a word called anosmia, or the loss of smell. My wife would make and give me food, but I just couldn't enjoy or taste anything. I'm a really big coffee drinker. I enjoy good coffee, and I can taste the subtleties of great fresh coffee. To the point though, when I got it, I straight up drank it, and I was like, this is like drinking hot water. I just couldn't really taste much. And this pretty much gone for the first like 8 to 10 days, to the point where I wasn't really eating much because my appetite was real low as a result. And I lost about 8 pounds in weight, pretty much just not eating. So I was drinking a lot of fluids though to keep things down. But the main symptoms I have were loss of taste, body aches. And I think the body aches were pretty significant. It's like you're doing a whole body workout, and the soreness you have afterwards is how I felt.
Got it. Just like doing after legs day or crunches, and then you go back and you like, just don't disturb me.
Yeah. So every time I start getting fevers, for me, I ended up having fevers every evening. So anytime I started having fevers, the body aches started coming back. During the day, I felt great, but then in the evening, I started getting worse and worse, and then I just slept. So I pretty much took Tylenol just to keep the pain away. The regular cough syrups towards the end of the illness, which happened. But fortunately, no shortness of breath and no difficulty walking to the bathroom or anywhere around the house. But for the most part, I tried to stay away from Ishani, my wife. So I pretty much only went to the bathroom and back to the bedroom. And then my wife stayed outside in the living room. So she ended up sleeping on the couch. But fortunately, we had a very firm couch, so she had a good night's rest on that.
I'm happy that you are back.
But I'm back though. Yeah. So fortunately, no shortness of breath, no oxygen getting low.
That's good.
Yeah.
So how is the situation for you guys in the hospital? How is it all working? We can see that like we are getting a lot of cases every day, and like how are you guys coping up to that?
Yeah, so I think since the pandemic started and now there's definitely been timelines and outbreaks in different parts of the country. As for the situation in Chicago, it's overall been getting better. The governor has laid out plans for phases of reopening. And I think by the end of this week, we're aiming towards getting towards stage 4. There are a bunch of things that are included in that, like in restaurant dining with restricted amount of people and things like that. So it kind of reflects what we're seeing in the hospital, that our ICU loads are going down in terms of what we're seeing in terms of COVID patients. Certainly doesn't mean that the virus isn't out there. It's just that right now, using our social distancing measures and our masks and our precautions, specifically in the area that our hospitals serve, we're doing better than we did when this pandemic started.
So, please go ahead, Karmavia.
Oh no, I mean, going along with Dr. Johnny, I agree. A lot of the patients now that are left over are pretty much the chronically ill patients that are having the side effects of COVID-19, who are either in the ICU or the progressive step down units. So they are still ill. They have other complications, but all the more relatively sick, but are safely to be discharged are pretty much out of the hospital. So we haven't seen any new big cases coming through. What's there is there.
Yep. Yeah. So like in terms of government, like how is the government helping you, like in terms of PPE, mask and everything? Like in the beginning of the pandemic, we saw like a lot of videos like the doctors don't have a lot of PPEs or the mask. How is the government helping you now?
So I think over time, it's certainly in the beginning, we thought this was an airborne virus. And so we used the most strict precautions. Every time you go in and out, you change out your gown, you had special types of masks. So there's a couple of things. One, the recommendations changed, and I think these are somewhat institutional as well, in terms of now surgical masks are good for most cases unless you're doing something that generates aerosols like intubation, tracheostomies, or anything involving the nasopharyngeal airway. In which case they're saying, have more stringent types of protection, such as an N95 mask or a respirator. But by and large, what we're doing is using simple surgical masks, which we have enough supply for. And if a hospital or a region feels like there aren't enough supplies, it kind of goes up the chain of command that they have set. And if a governor really feels like, there is truly still a need, then they reach out to the federal agencies that can get them supplies. I know that at least from what I'm hearing on the news, that is happening in locations where the cases of COVID-19 are going up instead of flattening or decreasing.
Oh, that's good. So so it's not airborne. It's not like it will, like you have to wear an N95 mask. Anything will work. That's a good thing.
So I think there's actually
I think that's a very relative term in terms of how airborne it is. So you think about different disease states. So there's different different bacteria. So one of them being the most airborne known to man, one of them is tuberculosis, which requires the strictest of mask. Our current stance, or our earlier stance, was to be most protective to reduce the amount of infection. But models, or at least anecdotally, things have shown that you can still get adequate protection by using surgical masks. But like I said, it is still airborne, and you still have to be very precautious and being in contact. And that's why we've been pushing more towards wearing masks in general, regardless of the type. Wearing masks and everyone wearing masks, and more people involved wearing masks, especially in the public areas, is helpful in reducing the transmission of this virus. I think we just still lack a lot of good research right now at this time to say for sure if how we transmit. But for the most part, we've noticed that the best way to catch this virus is if you're around someone that's actively ill and they either cough or sneeze or have any secretions get into your respiratory system.
Okay. So, like, where are we in terms of a vaccine, and like, what is the FDA process of approval of a vaccine or a cure? Like, we have seen remdesivir for one, and then Moderna is like coming to phase 3 as well in their trials. Like, where are we on the terms of vaccine? If you can explain that.
So we'll kind of break that down a little. So in terms of vaccines, as a humanity, there are multiple countries, multiple organizations that are collaborating, not just one vaccine, but many different types of vaccines to figure out which one is going to do the trick. Around the world, there are different vaccines in different stages of clinical trials or approval in their respective countries. I do not know which vaccine is the furthest, but what we can talk about what the utility of a vaccine is. So let's say we have a vaccine and it works. What stands to be seen is what kind of sustained immunologic response that causes, meaning that what's the type of antibody that results from the vaccine that we end up going with. There are certain vaccines that you need to get over and over throughout life, and that's because after you don't see it long enough, the titers of the antibody decrease, and effectively you're no longer immune to that. Yep. And so what stands to be seen is once we do have a vaccine and we administer it, how long does the antibody response last for? What type of antibody response is it? And that's something, and it totally depends on how this antibody, this vaccine was made, using what part of the virus. So this vaccine question is, we don't have much data on it as we would like.
Yeah, I get it. So, we heard like the remdesivir is like in emergency use all around the US, and also like it's coming in India and other countries as well. So like, are you guys using it, or like any other drugs to treat COVID patients? Like in the beginning, it was like really early stage for the coronavirus, but now like a lot of people know about it. So like, what all drugs are you guys using to treat people?
So it's a great question, and I think I can better share that because I work as an internal medicine physician, as a hospitalist on a continuous case. So we can kind of split up. So early stages, a lot of the medications that were used on a theoretical or a prospective study case. What that means is we look back in time and took numbers and said, hey, I think these patients are getting better, and then applied that logic to new patient cases and saw if we could see improvement in those patients. The only issue with that is a lot of places would be publishing this data, but it lacked one good randomized control trial, which means that creating a placebo, a study group, a control group, being able to randomize the information and creating a large amount of population where you test the people. I think we just didn't have that time, and then there was kind of things you can't test ethically if you, at that time, you want to try everything you can. And then, of course, lack of peer review. We still don't have a lot of research on peer review. So early stages, we did some hydroxychloroquine as a trial. The theoretical assumption with hydroxychloroquine is that it worked at our body's cells, the building products, and prevented the virus from entering into the virus or the cells themselves and allowing them to replicate and disperse throughout the body. But we noticed that the risk of using that treatment outweighed the benefits, and that was done based on a pretty decent trial of the Veterans Affairs trial, where they saw it and they found that there was more arrhythmias associated with it, and so heart disease, cardiac toxicity, which means or you would elicit more arrhythmias with this and become more fatal. So the benefits weren't as much. Later on, we started noticing trials, remdesivir, which is an antiviral, which was created during the Ebola outbreak, I think in the early to mid 2000s. which was used towards Ebola. It wasn't really as effective, but it was out there, and it's been used as a trial basis. We don't have good evidence, but from what we've been seeing studies-wise, it has reduced the amount of hospitalization. In my hospital setting, a regular physician, you don't need the clearance of a lung specialist or an infectious disease doctor to use that medication. All you have to do is you have to know if their liver enzyme function is low, if they have a good kidney function, if you expect their oxygen level, if they're requiring supplemental oxygen to help them breathe, and if you think they're going to be in the hospital for at least a minimum of 5 days, because this treatment plan requires them through the IV and needs to be started for many days and not just 1 day, much like we have for the flu, which is Tamiflu, where you can give it in an oral form and you can safely give it as an outpatient. So we've been trying on a trial basis. I don't have much data or evidence, but the idea of the medication is that it has reduced the amount of time people are hospitalized or stay in the sick phase.
Mm-hmm.
The other medications that are out there that we're trying, one of them is a steroid. It's called dexamethasone. What it's been used to reduce the amount of inflammation primarily in the around the body. It pretty much tricks the body to not have a strong immune response. So a lot of things that happens with COVID-19 is you have a huge immune response. Your body tends to overreact to the virus itself, and that causes collateral damage. One of them primarily being causing inflammation in the lungs and having difficulty giving good oxygen to the rest of the body. So we found that sometimes maybe giving dexamethasone early on through the IV form has reduced the amount of inflammation, tells the body to slow down in terms of the immune response and create less damage to the lungs themselves, preventing more catastrophic effects of the virus or the immune response itself. We're still studying that. We don't have conclusive data yet, but there's some promising data on that as well. Before steroids, we're saying no, don't use them early on, try to use them later on, but now we found evidence using them early on has been somewhat helpful. The other medication that's been out there that's been pretty big known is tocilizumab, which is a monoclonal antibody. It's been produced. It's mostly used in autoinflammatory diseases, one of them being rheumatoid arthritis. What it does is it affects part of the immune system, one of them being interleukin-6. What it does is it tells that monoclonal antibody attacks the interleukin-6 part of the cycle that releases cytokines in your body, which is a huge fire that gets started whenever your body responds to COVID-19. What it does is that you have to use certain parameters to give it. In my hospital, it's only restricted to infectious disease or pulmonary doctors, which is a lung specialist. And the idea is that by giving that medication, you slow down the immune response and prevent that huge surge in the immune response trying to fight that virus itself and cause less lung damage. There's been some promising data, at least in my hospital, but of course, every medication has its risk and benefits used. And so those are kind of three of the main medications that we have out there. There's still more medications that are being studied upon, one of them being how they affect the immune system, or what we call immunomodulators, so affecting the immune system's response to the virus itself. And so those are some of the main theories of data. Hopefully in the near future, we'll have some antivirals very similar to something called oseltamivir or Tamiflu, which is the common brand name, and remdesivir. And of course, hopefully with better studies about how our immune body system responds to the virus itself, how long the immunity lasts, and how efficacious that immune response is later on can be helpful both in vaccination and kind of moving forward with herd immunity. I think if kind of Vishal can maybe touch upon that, Dr. Johnny.
So as you said, herd immunity, the whole world is reopening, be it India, United States, or any other country. So they said that herd immunity is the way right now. So can you tell us what it is and how it works and everything?
Yeah, for sure. So let's pretend we have a group of 10 people that we're looking at, and we want to keep them from getting the virus. Well, for some reason, let's say 2 or 1 of those people cannot get the vaccine for whatever reason. If the 8 people around them get vaccinated or immune, meaning that they cannot carry the virus, then in this population that we have, this closed area, the virus has a very hard time spreading in that community because everyone is pretty much immune to it except for those 2 people. And so what herd immunity basically is that our herd is basically mostly immune to it, and that we're protecting the people via our immunity that cannot either have an immune response to it, do not have a competent immune system, meaning that they're immunocompromised for whatever reason. So that's the general concept of herd immunity, and the way we generally create herd immunity has by and large been using vaccinations or those who have naturally been infected. Something like when we had chickenpox was a really big thing. People would send their kids to like these chickenpox parties, and then everybody would get chickenpox, and they would say that, okay, well, now they can't get it again, so the kids that don't have it, that aren't immune to it, well, these 10 kids are and that 1 kid isn't, but these 10 kids aren't going to get it. So unless he gets it directly, he's not going to get it from these other 10. And so that's generally the concept that we're trying to think of when we say herd immunity.
Okay. That's something like, so there's no vaccination. So everyone needs to get COVID and then get treated and something like, so a lot of work for you guys. I mean,
in the ideal world is having very mild symptoms of COVID-19 and developing immunity, but there's just so many obstacles. We don't know how good, our immune system is, how long the immunity lasts, and if so, how much of the population needs to be infected to provide a good sense of herd immunity. The latest figures I've read is about 70-75% of the population needs to develop it to protect those who cannot, who can't afford to get COVID-19 or have a severe reaction to it if they were to get it.
Okay.
So, and for perspective, we're about 5 to 7% of the U.S. population has been infected, and we're about around 100 to 110 deaths, 110,000 deaths in this country. So definitely the getting everybody sick and then see what happens afterwards is not it doesn't seem like a humane approach to tackle this problem.
Yeah, it's not like ethically right. I mean, to get infected everyone, yeah, that I get it. So like the whole world is reopening. Illinois is already on phase 4 of reopening. Everything is gonna reopen, like be it India, US, and everything. So what all challenges like you guys think that you guys will see in future? Because like a lot of countries have like already got like emergency hospitals and everything, like in like my country, India. So they have emergency hospitals, they took over hotels, they took over banquet halls, and they are making hospitals over there. So do you think that Illinois or like all US is going to do that, something like that?
So I think every country is approaching this differently, and within the country, there are different states and provinces are also approaching it differently. So specifically in the United States, every state is monitoring itself to figure out what the best way to reopen is and how fast to do it. We have seen that if you reopen before you're ready, so the White House has laid out guidelines that once you have 14 days of continuous case decreasing, it shows that you're ready for the next phase. If you open before that, well, then you have to kind of accept the challenges and risks that come associated with that. And right now in this country, we have states that are very different parts of the coronavirus pandemic. So in Illinois and New York, we're kind of on the downswing, and that's because we have taken a more conservative approach. There are other parts in the country that, thought that they would be ready and wanted to reopen and engage the economy. And they're seeing their numbers go up and their hospital capacities are kind of coming close to full. And so this is definitely a regional thing. We can't say what the United States is doing is correct and India must follow, vice versa. What Illinois is doing is correct and that state must follow. Everyone has to kind of take it as a personal responsibility to see that, hey, this is the reality. What level of risk am I willing to tolerate? And how can I best protect myself and somebody else from becoming part of the COVID statistics?
Okay. So, like, I had like 2 or 3 Mythbusters. So you already said that the virus is like kind of airborne, but it's not like it cannot travel through here or something. But like, so is it
So
true that
it is airborne in the sense that if someone was actively coughing, it can travel at a minimum of 6 feet and even more so. And it can stay around for a few hours in the air, up to a few, at least a few hours in the air too. So I want to kind of clarify that.
So, like, a lot of people are saying that the virus cannot survive in hot weather or something like that. Like, do you want to say something about that? Like, if we already have summer in Chicago or anywhere around the world, but still, like, virus is like coming up like each and every day and all. So, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think in the field and the house of medicine, it's always very hard to, and I said always, but it's hard to speak in absolute terms. And so specifically this virus, which we, in the grand scheme of things, don't really know a lot about, to say that we know hot weather destroys it or affects its transmissibility or its lethality, we don't have the answers to those questions. And anyone who says that they have an answer is either speaking anecdotally or is making conjecture. Doesn't make it wrong, but scientifically, if I were to say here that warm weather deters the coronavirus, that is not a statement that I can back up. And so what I would say is, if you think that warm weather is going to protect you, that is not true.
Okay. And also, like, we know that like face mask works, but like as the government said, like you can make a face mask or like from your like handkerchief or something. So does that work, like a face mask from like normal cloth or something?
So a way to kind of put that is the ideal is a surgical mask, an N95. The meaning of N95 is it can protect up to 95% of particulates in the air. Surgical masks are woven or created synthetically to provide the minimal amount of particles to enter your body. While cloth masks or handkerchief masks are not ideal, I think the access and the renewability of that is far better than not wearing anything at all. And so we've noticed, at least in anecdotal and prospective studies, that if more than one party is wearing masks, you can definitely deter the spread of coronavirus itself. Whether it's simply a scarf, wearing a handkerchief over the mouth, maybe a necktie, or not necktie, I'm sorry, or just a regular surgical or cloth mask. In the end, I would encourage anyone that can, as long as you can breathe comfortably and don't feel like you're suffocating, to wear a mask or cover your face if you can.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope you guys get well, like, this thing gets back like as it was. I'll come back to Chicago. We'll meet you guys for sure. And let's hope for the best. Thank you.
That's all we can hope for, yeah. Thanks for having us, Ish.
Yeah,
See you soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
Take care.
Take care. Stay safe. Bye.